I'd like to touch on a few things about writing a summary lead, also known as a traditional lead or a report the news lead. If you're following along with the lecture notes posted on Moodle, you will see that there's a few things that matter in terms of thinking about what to put in an essential lead. And that is an answer or the answers to a variety of specific questions such as who, what, when, where, why, how. And really, you want to convey a sense of so what, who cares? Why are we bothering reading the story? And sometimes part of the who, what, when, where, why, or how does answer the so what question on its own. And sometimes you have to word a lead in order to address that in specific. There's a couple of slides that review a lot of the information you also are finding in your chapter, so I won't spend a lot of time on them. A few things to remember in specific is that the lead has to be fairly short. So the lead, just as a reminder, is the first paragraph of the news story and has to be one, at most two sentences, and it's okay to have them be longer sentences. Make a single point, meaning focus on what's most important and what's most current information. Focus on what's unique, what is unusual, why is this in the story, why is it in the news. Again, it comes back to that so what question. Why do we bother reading this news story or hearing it when we get to broadcast? Only the most relevant details, only the key facts. Avoid clutter. We are not going to include names in a lead unless they are people that are recognizable. Prominent names will be in a lead. Otherwise, the you and me sort of news about anybody getting in a car accident or getting robbed, things like that, those sorts of names we avoid putting in the lead. We delay them for later in the story. Same goes for addresses. We, in general, never include specific addresses with news unless the address itself is the story, like 10 Downing Place or something like that. Ages, times, all of these can be delayed for later in the story. Always remember that after the lead comes a story. It's not, the first paragraph is not all that there is. Link what's new to information preceding it. That's essential to understand the story. So if it's a story that builds on something that was voted on recently, that happened in the news the day before, if you're looking at, for example, news story related to a hurricane landing, you will notice that following days will start with information regarding the hurricane landing or other kinds of flooding contexts that happened the day before. Do not start the summary lead with when or where. These are the least important key facts, when something is happening or where. So delay those for later in the first sentence or the second sentence of the lead. Let's look at a couple of examples of good leads. So for example, if we read this lead together, Washington, district health workers and 150 volunteers will sweep through many of the city's homeless shelters tonight to test residents for tuberculosis in a novel high-stakes strategy to control the resurgent disease in one of its main breeding grounds. You will notice we have who, the district health workers and 150 volunteers. The what is what the action is. So we'll sweep through many of these shelters. When, we have tonight. Where, we have the location standing out apart from the text in the beginning. The why is obvious also in part of that goes kind of together with a what, but it explains that part of testing residents for tuberculosis, this is a new strategy. This is also the how, and the why is part of the need, obviously, to test for tuberculosis. So this is a great example of one sentence long with enough details, but also to give a sense of the importance. The so what? It's a high-stakes strategy. Another example, Pentagon officials have thought up a new way to persuade the military services to shut down excess bases. Let commanders keep control of the money saved. We see here two sentences separated by a colon. We have what? We have the who, Pentagon officials. The what is they've thought up of a new way, which is to let commanders keep control of the money. Where, we have Pentagon. This is an example where we do not have a when because it's not necessarily a reporting on the exact decision date or time. Probably this could be a little bit differently phrased if we were to stick to having all the essential questions in the lead. Why is not extremely clear here, nor is it that important, but the how is important, right? The new way, which is to let commanders keep control of the money. Again, this isn't one of the most straightforward leads because I think it still leaves a question hanging, but it does still start from the essential questions, and the rest of the issues with the story come in the second paragraph. This is an example I'll let you read on your own, where the breakdown of the 5 W's and the H. And this is an example that you could look at in terms of information that comes from a police report, and as a reporter, how you should think about it. So you have information that is about robbery at a bank, and the police report talks about it chronologically. So it starts with the alarm that notifies police, the fact that the teller of the bank tells what happened with somebody coming at the drive-in window at 12:31. She was giving the robber a paper bag full of money. The robber was so-and-so, looked like so-and-so, was on a motorcycle, pulled out a gun. This is what she was told, and then a little bit more information from the police report. So if you're thinking about the 5 W's and the H, you have to think about the fact that there's two people doing action here. There's a teller, there's the robber, but also some people might confuse the who with the alarm. The alarm is not doing any action, it's just an alarm, right? So that's not necessarily important to emphasize. So if we're peeking ahead, the man on the motorcycle or the robber, not the teller, is doing the action, right? So the man on the motorcycle or robber is the most newsworthy. And therefore, once you've picked your who, you pick your what, because who does what, right? So we have to decide on the action once we've decided on who's most important to emphasize. So it would be the robber or a man on a motorcycle robbed First State Bank yesterday at this particular location at this bank in Englewood. In this particular case, this is made up. And then we don't know why there was a robbery, but we know a lot of information about how the robbery happened. So some ways to write the lead would be to emphasize a man on a motorcycle rode up to the drive-in window of the First State Bank in Englewood yesterday, pulled a gun on the teller, and rode off with $5,500, according to police. It's important in cases like this to attribute where the information is coming from. So according to police has to be there. It doesn't matter the name of the police officer. Again, it's not recognizable, but it does matter that the source is the police versus a hospital or the bank itself. And notice how we pulled the information from the W's and the H that we discussed. Unacceptable leads would be to emphasize the alarm, to investigate the police investigation, or the bank. However, make a note about the second lead, police are investigated, written in present tense, is very common for broadcast, where we are emphasizing the very present moment, what's going on right now, and that would be the investigation. But for print, it is a good idea to always write in past tense, rode up, pulled a gun, and rode off. You have other examples in the textbook to break down good leads and also to build them up. And just remember that we are emphasizing reporting the news leads, the summary traditional leads this week.